Hi, it's Maija here with my mid-year book buying stats. I haven't made a video like this before, but I thought it would be fun to look at book buying stats as well as at the end of the year when I do my reading stats. So this is statistics about what sorts of books and how many and what have they cost of the books that I have bought this year. So that will be the first part, and then the second part will be a haul part where I show you every single book that I have bought this year so far. If you have watched all my reads and receipts videos, you might want to skip that part. You have seen all these books before, but if you haven't watched all of them, or if you just want to see all the books in the same place, then that part is for you. So let's start with the stats, and these are from January to June, so for the first 6 months of 2019. I bought or acquired 25 books and comics this year, and of those I have read 11, so that is 44% of the books that I bought. I had already read 3 of the books when I bought them, so those are included in that 11 number. Of the 25 books that I bought 10 earlier in the year, and then I bought the rest, the 15, in May and June. So I really need to curb my book buying a bit. When it comes to the format of the books that I bought 14 ebooks, so that is 56% of the books that I bought. I have bought 7 graphic works, of which 2 were digital comics, and then I have also bought 2 hardcovers and 2 paperbacks. Then let's go to genre. I have bought 12 fantasy books, that's 48% of the books that I bought. That's no surprise. Then I have bought 3 science fiction books, 3 horror books, and then 2 each of mystery, fairy tales, and contemporary, and then 1 historical fiction. When it comes to buying location, I have bought 12 books from Amazon. That is 48% of the books that I bought. These are most of the ebooks that I bought. I have a Kindle, so I buy ebooks from Amazon. Then I have bought 4 comics, digital comics from Comixology, 2 books from Book Depository, 2 books from Better World Books, and then 1 each from Adlibris, which is this Nordic online bookstore, 1 from Project Gutenberg, 1 I got from NetGalley, 1 I bought from this Finnish comic and RPG store, and then 1 from a used bookstore here in Finland. Moving on to the cost analysis, I have spent 101.40 euros on books during the first half of the year. I did have a gift card for the beginning of the year. I just marked those books as gifts, so those are not included in the cost analysis. This is how much I have spent of my own money. And that brings the average cost per book to 6.76 euros. That's about £6 or $7.50 US. I bought a lot of cheap ebooks, but then a few more expensive physical books, which brings the average cost up. So I've spent about, rounding up, 68.5 euros in physical books and 33 euros in ebooks. So that's 67.5% of the money that I have spent in physical books. If you remember, I bought 56% ebooks, so the money has gone mostly to physical books, but I have bought mostly ebooks. Since I have read most of the physical books and comics that I've bought, the value of the books that I have read is 78 euros, which is 77% of the money that I have spent, even though I have only read 44% of the books that I have bought. Then lastly, for the stats part, let's compare my book buying to the first half of 2018, so the last year. And last year I had bought 36 books in the first half of the year, plus I had bought 1 month of Scribd subscription, so that is 12 more books than this year. And I had read 14 of those books, so that is 16%, which is a lot less percent-wise than this year when I have read 44% of the books I have bought so far. The average cost per book was 7.6 euros last year, so about €1 more than this year. And I had bought 17 physical and 19 digital books, so that explains the average cost being higher because I had bought so many more physical books. I had spent 159.6 euros in books during the first half of the year, so that is about 60 euros more than I have spent this year. And that also means that the majority of my book spending happened during the latter half of the year in 2018. So let's see if that happens now, especially because in August I am going to Worldcon, where I will be buying books. So that is all for the stats. Now let's move on to the haul part. The first 5 books I have already featured in a January book haul. I will go through them now, but I will not be reading the first sentence of them, which I like to do in hauls a la Libby Stevenson. I have read the first sentence of these first 5 books in my January book haul, so if you want to hear that, go watch that. But the rest of the books I will be reading the first sentence from. And I'll also be giving you a rating if I have already read the book. The first thing that I bought in 2019 was Ashbourne by Kate Sellers. This is a horror comic, and I gave this one 3 stars. Then I bought the ebook of the Poirot mystery Murder in the Mews by Agatha Christie, which I've also read, and I gave it 4 stars. I bought Reign of the Fallen by Sarah Glenn Marsh, which is a young adult fantasy. I downloaded from Project Gutenberg the classic mystery The Return of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. and I bought Falcon by Anna Butler, which is a science fiction romance. Now the rest of the books I'm gonna be reading the first sentence from. An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon, a science fiction novel. The first sentence goes, Aster removed 2 scalpels from her medkit to soak in a solution of disinfectant. The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie, a fantasy novel. I first saw you when you rode out of the forest past the cluster of tall bulge-eyed offering stakes that mark the edges of the forest, your horse at a walk. I forgot to say I have read this, I gave it 4 stars. European Travel for the Monstrous Gentlewoman by Theodora Goss is the second in this series of gothic historical fiction mystery novels. The first sentence is, Mary, you're not even going to protest. Shula Run, The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 6 by Nagabe. And this is a dark fairy tale-ish fantasy manga that I gave 3.5 stars. The first sentence is, Down There, Houses. The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 8, Old is the New by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey. This is a contemporary fantasy comic series that I gave 3 stars to this volume. And the first sentence of this one is, Who in God's name are you dressed up as? When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll is a horror comic which I gave 3.5 stars. And the first sentence is, When I arrived at the castle, she said, You're early. Please make yourself comfortable. Perhaps you might like to dry off by the fire. Then from NetGalley I got The Very Best of Caitlin R. Kiernan, which is a collection of her short stories, the sort of dark fantasy horror-toned things. And the first sentence of the first story, called Andromeda Among the Stones, is she really and truly dead, father? Then Snow White Learns Witchcraft, Stories and Poems by Theodora Goss, which I'm currently reading, collection of fairy tale-ist short stories and poems. The first poem is Snow White Learns Witchcraft, and the first sentence of that is, One day she looked into her mother's mirror. Then I bought The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin, which is her debut fantasy novel. I am currently rereading this. I gave it 5 stars before, and I know I'm gonna give it 5 stars again. And the first sentence is, I am not as I once was. Then I got 2 digital comics. I got Volume 8 and Volume 9 of Tokyo Tarareba Girls by Akiko Higashimura. This is a contemporary manga series. I have read this. I gave the series about 3.5 stars, or 3 stars as a whole. Then I got The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison. I got this from Better World Books. They are usually very good at listing when a book is a library edition. This wasn't supposed to be, but it was, so I got my money back, but I still got to keep the book. The dust jacket is actually in great condition, but the book itself is quite dirty and has this really strong tape on the cover that was holding the dust jacket plastic in place. The book itself is great. I have read it before and I gave it 5 stars. And the first sentence is, Maija woke with his cousin's cold fingers digging into his shoulder. Poor Maija. Also from Better World Books, I got Theodora Gossi's In the Forest of Forgetting, another one of her short story collections. And this one, the first story in this one is actually the next story that I'm gonna read in her other collections. So some of these stories are the same across the collections. And that is The Rose in 12 Petals. And the first sentence is, This rose has 12 petals. Then I got Musketisoturit seikkailevat jälleen, or 20 Years After, I think it's called in English, by Alexandre Dumas. And I have read this one before. I'm gonna reread it sometime again. And the first sentence, do you want to hear the first sentence in Finnish? Let's read it in Finnish. The first sentence is, Eräässä kardinaalipalatsin huoneessa istui päätänsä molempiin käsiin nojaten mies paperien ja kirjojen peittämän pöydän ääressä, jonka kulmat olivat kullattua hopeaa. You're welcome. Finally, moving on to the books that I bought in June, and the first of those is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. This is a science fiction novel, and the first sentence is, In Teixkalaan, these things are ceaseless, star charts and disembarkments. Then there's The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. This is a fantasy series, the second in a series, so I'm not going to read the first sentence because I haven't read the first book yet. Descendant of the Crane by Joan He is a young adult fantasy, and the first sentence is, A well-conceived costume is a new identity, the father used to say as he put on his commoner's cloak. The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling is a science fiction horror novel about spelunking, and the first sentence is, She'd never gone this deep. Then I bought the first volume of the fantasy horror manga Claymore by Norihiro Yagi, and the first page has grah and thwok, but the first actual sentence is, This is the 6th one. And then finally I got Witchmark by C.L. Polk, which I think is sort of a romantical fantasy novel based on the Edwardian era England. So the setting is sort of historical but set in a secondary fantasy world, if I'm not mistaken. And the first sentence of this is, "The memo stank of barrel printing ink and bad news." That's actually a pretty good first sentence. So those were my first half of the year book buying stats and book haul. I have also received the Hugo Voters Packet 2019, which is a collection of fantasy and science fiction ebooks that are nominated for Hugo Awards. I didn't include them in this one because then this would have been 1 hour long, but I did receive a bunch of other ebooks as well. So that's all from me for now, and I will see you in my next video.